Welcome to LiCAS.news. I'm Shirley Benedictos, and these are headlines this week. One in every 3 countries suffers grave violations of religious freedom. Press freedom in Asia worsens during pandemic, says media watchdog. Sri Lankan Catholic Church leader calls on Muslims to reject extremism. Vatican official calls for common efforts to care for biodiversity. South Korea court dismisses Comfort Women lawsuit, contradicts earlier ruling. Vatican calls for global prayer marathon for end to pandemic. Pope Francis warns that the planet is at the brink. And now to our stories. One in every 3 countries in the world suffers grave violations of religious freedom, according to a report released by the Catholic Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need this week. The Religious Freedom in the World Report 2021 noted the increase in violations and persecutions in more than 25 countries, with China and Myanmar among those that have the worst records. The report, which was presented in Rome on April 20, noted that religious freedom was not respected in 62 of the world's 196 countries between 2018 and 2020. In 26 of these countries, people suffered persecution, and in 95% of them, the situation has become even worse during the period under review. The 800-page report was prepared by ACN, a worldwide Catholic charity that studies violations of freedoms of all religions. Many countries in Asia reportedly used the coronavirus pandemic to control the flow of information and suppress press freedom. This was the finding of the 2021 World Press Freedom Index released by Reporters Without Borders this week. The report revealed that the region's authoritarian regimes have capitalized on the global health crisis to perfect their methods of totalitarian control of information. The report noted that some dictatorial democracies have used the pandemic as a pretext for imposing especially repressive legislation with provisions combining propaganda and suppression of dissent. North Korea remains the worst performer in Asia at 179th out of the 180 countries included in the report because of its totalitarian control over information and its population. China, which ranked 177th, has reportedly taken advantage of the health crisis to enhance its control over online information even more. Vietnam at 175th also reportedly reinforced its control of social media content while conducting a wave of arrests of leading independent journalists. Cardinal Malcolm Ranjith of Colombo called on Sri Lanka's Muslims to reject extremism as the country marked the anniversary of the 2019 Easter Sunday bombings that killed 269 people. Be brave enough to reject extremism, said the prelate during the commemoration of the 2nd anniversary of the attacks at St. Anthony's Shrine in Colombo on April 21. You fully understand that there is no connection with religion and teachings to murder, he added. Groups linked to the so-called Islamic State were responsible for the simultaneous blasts at 2 Catholic churches, a Protestant church, and 3 tourist hotels on Easter Sunday 2 years ago. Cardinal Ranjith, however, accused the government of stalling investigations into the bombings even as nearly 200 people were arrested within days of the attacks. No one has yet been charged. A top official of the Vatican this week called for common efforts to protect biodiversity amid threats posed by the changing climate and the global health crisis brought about by the coronavirus pandemic. The Church always raises her prophetic voice to provide a spiritual basis for reflection on the protection of the poor, which includes the Earth's diversity and its ecosystems, said Cardinal Peter Turkson, prefect of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development of the Vatican. The Cardinal stressed the importance of ecological conversion and a common commitment to care for our common home at a webinar on Tuesday, April 20 on biodiversity. In his presentation, Cardinal Turkson cited Pope Francis's repeated calls for increased care for the earth, including his calls for universal fraternity. A South Korean court on April 21 upheld Japan's state immunity to dismiss a lawsuit raised by a group of women who were forced to work in Japanese wartime brothels, contradicting a ruling in a separate earlier case that ordered Tokyo to compensate victims. Remnants of Japan's 1910-1945 colonial rule of the Korean Peninsula remain contentious for both sides, with many surviving comfort women, a Japanese euphemism for the sex abuse victims, demanding Tokyo's formal apology and compensation. Diplomatic tension flared in January when another judge in Seoul ruled in favor of other women in a separate case, ordering Japan to pay compensation for the first time. That verdict had drawn a rebuke from Tokyo, which says the issue was settled under a 1965 treaty and a 2015 deal. But on April 21, a judge at the same court recognized Japan's right to state immunity from overseas lawsuits, contradicting the January ruling that Japan could not assert immunity for a crime against humanity. The Vatican announced this week a rosary initiative dedicating the month of May to a prayer for an end to the coronavirus pandemic. The Pontifical Council for the Promotion of the New Evangelization dedicated the month to a prayer marathon with a theme, Prayer to God went up incessantly from the whole Church. The initiative will involve all the shrines of the world in a special way so that they might encourage the faithful, families, and communities to recite the Rosary to pray for an end to the pandemic. The Marian Month of Prayer will be opened by Pope Francis on May 1 with the praying of the Rosary that will be broadcast online. The Pope will close the initiative on May 31. Pope Francis said the pandemic has demanded enormous sacrifices from each nation and its citizens. The Pope said that in responding to the pandemic, attention should be paid to reforming the international debt structure and allowing access to external financing to promote economic development. Pope Francis said in his Earth Day message on April 22 that the planet was at the brink and humanity had to avoid the path of self-destruction. The Pope, who has issued many appeals for environmental protection since his election in 2013, spoke in two video messages, one for the Earth Day Live internet event and another for a global climate summit hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden. Now is the time to act. We are at the brink, Pope Francis, who has backed the scientific consensus that global warming is partly man-made, said in the Earth Day message. He cited the COVID-19 pandemic coupled with the effects of climate change and said nature could not continue to be disrespected because it would no longer forgive. He said now was the time for innovation and invention and urged political leaders to act with courage and justice. And that's all for this week. I'm Shirley Benedictos for LiCAS.news, your independent Catholic news source in Asia. For more stories, visit our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel.